Welcome into a Wednesday, October 23rd edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and as always, brought to you by Fountain Tire. They treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. Whether you need new tires, whether your engine has a little rattle, Fountain Tire can sort it out. Right now, you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, until December 14th. Plus, save $50 or more on any service of $150. Some restrictions apply. Stop into Fountain Tire or make an appointment at fountaintire.com. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and that's Frank Saravalli making his return from the Windy City. Frank, was it windy?
It was not. It was actually a beautiful couple days in Chicago, and it was great to be in the United Center last night for Hawks Canucks, as that was part of the Frozen Frenzy last night, and awesome to I love getting out and spending time around teams. I collected a Frankly Speaking one-on-one podcast with Connor Bedard, and it was just, there's nothing better than being in the rink.
Cannot wait for that Connor Bedard interview to drop. Another reason why you should be subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube. You can also find Frankly Speaking wherever you get your podcast from. We got a busy show coming up. Our pal Jon Goyens is going to swing by for his weekly hit right away, as he will dig into what's fueling this Winnipeg Jets perfect start. But first, Frank, let's start with the Frozen Frenzy. 16 games, all 32 teams in action last night. And I like that the NHL passed along this sort of by the numbers look at this. 16 games, 98 goals, an average of 6.1 goals per game. We had some entertaining ones. The first goal of the game was Nick Dowd at 6:14 Eastern. The final goal, Ivan Barbashev at 1:36 a.m. Eastern. I love that the NHL does this, Frank. And honestly, I wish it was more than a once a year kind of thing.
Yeah, it's full marks to the Situation Room, to the referees, the officials, everyone around the league. You're taxing all of your resources. There's not typically this many games in one night. It's only the 4th time it's ever happened with 16 games in one day. And I think what I've learned is people on social media love to bitch. They've got something to complain about every time. Oh, why do they try and do it this way? How come they did it on the night that the NBA opens their schedule? How come this? How come that? The staggered start time. Like, please, like just be thankful for once. And you know what? Like, what about it don't you like? Like, you could have sat on your couch. You're in the mountain time zone. You could have sat on your couch from 4 p.m. until midnight and ordered whatever you want to your house and sat there and enjoyed it with a couple beverages and literally saw every team play. What more do you want than that?
Well, and it's just to your comment about people like to bitch. Like, if you put it on a Tuesday, everyone says, why is it on a Tuesday? And you're competing with the NBA. If you put it on a Saturday, then everybody goes, why are you competing with college football? What's wrong with you? Like, there's no winning. And also right now, the World Series hasn't started yet. So if you would have done it 3 days from now, it would have been like, why are you competing with the Yankees-Dodgers World Series? Like, there really is no winning with some people.
Do you know how hard it is to get 16 building availabilities in one day? Do you know how hard it is to get all those other schedules to align up in a matrix to get everyone where they need to be, let alone with some games on Monday, some games on Wednesday, back-to-back scenarios, travel? Like, there's a million things that go into it. It's hard to pull off. There's a reason why it doesn't happen all that more often, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. Let's quickly try to go through a couple of the results last night. I thought it was very interesting. There was one game on Monday, and it was the Leafs hammering the Bolts. And then yesterday, those two teams were complete opposites. And I saw, we spent a lot of time talking about the Leafs yesterday, but it's like, oh man, Craig Berube got a bit of a lesson in maybe what this Leafs team is like. They got a little too high on themselves and got knocked down a peg by the Blue Jackets. But also, I like the way the Bolts responded on the flip side of that conversation.
Yeah, I think everyone was looking for some sort of bold proclamation or statement that the Toronto Maple Leafs have changed. They're a different team. They're all these, buzzwords that you want to find. I'm not saying that they're not. All I'm saying is I don't really care what happens in October or any other month that isn't April, May, and June. That's all that matters for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's all that matters for this core. And making some kind of statement right now, I think only just makes you look foolish, because no statements can be made now.
Yeah, the Nashville Predators and their fan base breathing a sigh of relief. A 4-0 win, a 33-save shutout for UC Saros. The Preds are on the board, Frank.
And the Colorado Avalanche getting some goaltending finally. So, I mean, you start to see some of these things kind of come together. And by the way, the Calgary Flames win again. I mean, they just keep rolling.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby in the shootout comes in, a goal that would have won Pittsburgh the game. He goes square off the post. Like, it actually went post and then inside, like millimeters away from ending that thing. And the final result.
Evgeny Malkin, he had a chance to extend it and he gets stopped.
Yeah.
Dustin Wolf, big night in net, and the Kirkland story just continues to be fantastic.
Kirkland's signature. He's building something there. Last result quickly was the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, you look now, they're 3-4-1 on the year. You take out the start in Europe, which I know is always hard to get a read on a team when they're starting early in Europe. And it's like, okay, maybe the Sabres start isn't all that bad. It was an impressive win over the Dallas Stars.
It was, and that's a team that we've talked about needing to find itself. It feels like they're getting a little bit of a rhythm. And before we move on, got to give a little love. It's kind of the perfect transition. The Minnesota Wild, best start in 16 years. They slapped the defending Stanley Cup champs, whose coach got an extension yesterday.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Paul Maurice extended in Florida as he begins his third season behind the bench in Sunrise. He's got a fancy, shiny new contract, and we all know his resume. Back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals appearances. He's got a ring on his finger now. All-time, yeah, Paul Maurice is one of the greats, and he gets that multi-year extension. Frank, the only word that pops into my head, even if it's maybe basic and cliche, deserved.
Yeah, it fits, right? Like, I just think back to the two different times in Paul Maurice's career where he thought it might be over. I can remember tracking him down a couple years back, and I fished out his number, called him, and he was sitting on the edge of his dock in Manitoba on the lake fishing. And I said, "What are you doing? What are you up to? When are you coming back?" And he said, "I might never." He needed something to, a special opportunity to bring him back. I think his exit from Winnipeg was way more, I guess, acrimonious than a lot of us really understood at the time. And he gets a special Florida team that, to be fair, had won the President's Trophy, had Andrew Brunette do a really nice job in an interim role, replacing Joel Quenneville, and not an easy decision if you're Bill Zito to go out and make a change after all that happens. Yet he just seemed to be the right guy for the right team at the right time. And you just can't, the passion is there. And that was kind of maybe the thing that I wondered about was, is he going to Florida for a retirement job? Like, what does that look like? And you can't fake it, and he would never fake it. So really nice to see him get rewarded with an extension, obviously well deserved. And for the Panthers, they've got a lot more that they want to accomplish.
Yeah, listen, as much as it pains me as an Edmonton guy, that image of him holding up the Stanley Cup with his eyes closed, it's an all-timer. And Paul Maurice is absolutely an all-timer. And now he's got a fresh extension with the Florida Panthers. Frank, let's keep cruising along here. You mentioned it last night. You were in the building for Canucks Blackhawks, and it's Vancouver picking up another win, 3 in a row, and a 3-point night for JT Miller, who is off to a hell of a start this year. 6 points for him through 6 games in Vancouver. They've got points in 5 of 6 as well. What did you make of your first in-person viewing of the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, they're a team that's building and heading in the right direction. I mean, look, this was an odyssey of a road trip, 2 games in Florida, over to Philly, then Chicago on your way home. And there were a bunch of days in between. They'd been in Chicago since Saturday night. You never know what the team's going to respond with on a Tuesday after that. But for a team that started off as one of the last teams to get a win, they now head home 3-1-2, and totally with a different feel than a team that started off with 2 blown third period leads to kick off their season and a year with some expectations. One, Kevin Lankinen is absolutely the story of the Canucks season. 2, JT Miller continues to grind. He is someone that was questionable, I think, maybe for last night's game. I suspect he's dealing with a shoulder injury. No confirmation one way or the other, but the way that he exited that game in Philly early, then came back, he's like one of the NHL's ultimate grinders. I think he's missed 7 games as a Canuck. 4 of those were asymptomatic positive with COVID. He is someone that just is a warrior that wants to play. And to me, he's the engine and heartbeat of that team. Still some question marks in my view about the Canucks. Can they move the puck as efficiently as they need to on their back end? I think it gets thin in a hurry in that department once you get past their top pair. And will their goaltending continue to hold up? I think it will. And maybe the third question would be, how do you find a way to get Elias Pettersson going? Because there were maybe some moments last night where he looked a little bit more engaged, but still missing a lot.
Yeah, the Canucks have spent a lot of money trying to find wingers to slide next to Elias Pettersson. And I did see some people over in Canucks land yesterday talking about how, hey, maybe the solution was internal. He, like you said, he did have some good moments playing with Nils Höglander yesterday as Höglander got the bump up to the second line. We are going to get to smoke, fire, false alarm in a second, Frank, but maybe a little early one for you because it's tied into the Canucks. You mentioned that Thatcher Demko was skating and getting in work for the Canucks the other day. His return, smoke, fire, false alarm. Are we still a ways away?
We are probably still a ways away. I think the easiest way to explain it is that the Canucks are leaving this in Thatcher Demko's hands to tell them when he's comfortable to return. Watched him on the ice on Tuesday, well after their optional morning skate. I posted a video. He was essentially planted in the crease on one knee. He did this on both sides, and there was a coach in the corner on either side with a bungee cord that was basically trying to pull him out of the crease, and it was his job to essentially stabilize himself. Stability is the key word when it comes to this rehab. It's such a weird injury. He hasn't been able to find that stability in the knee with this popliteus muscle behind it that has caused him some discomfort. And, I think the nice thing for the Canucks is that the way Lankinen has played, .933 save percentage so far this season, he's basically supplanted Artur Shilov's as the guy that the Canucks are probably going to let run with the ball here, that they don't really they're not forced to bring him back or try and push this. They can give him all the time that he needs.
All right, let's get to our smoke, fire, or false alarm for today. Yesterday, we got an inbox question, Frank, sent to myself and Johnny Lazarus as he was filling in about, hey, any coaches getting on the hot seat? And while we joked about, hey, listen, Andrew Brunette seems safe, but how long can an ugly start go until there starts to be some questions there? The Predators got to win, so you can exhale maybe in that regard as they're now 1-5. But smoke, fire, false alarm. Are there any coaches around the NHL whose seats are maybe getting a little warm?
I think it's still early, still premature. I would have never included Andrew Brunette in that category. He's 5 games into the second year of his tenure with the Preds. Barry Trotz is a lifelong coach. I don't see him having an itchy trigger finger. And I look at that situation and I even just trying to read between some of the lines of what Brunette has said recently, including about how this poor start was affecting the mood and psyche of this team and how they're getting along. That part certainly raised an eyebrow, but I just don't see Barry Trotz making that type of move, especially this soon. That said, I think if there's one team that I'd look at, one position, that team that really needs to get in gear, again, they've won 2 straight to maybe take some of the heat off, but Derek Lalonde in Detroit, I still think that I don't know that everyone always sees eye to eye there. I think we've talked about some of their roster construction flaws and issues, but if I were to pick someone that's on the hot seat, if I had to, that would be the first one that comes to mind.
Outshot 30-11 in that game last night. And they won with Alex Lyon pitching a shutout. Next one I got for you, speaking of goaltending, Tristan Jarry's future with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Is there anything there, exploring the market, looking at ways to move on from him? Smoke, fire, false alarm?
No, there's definitely some fire there. The problem is he's in the second year of a 5-year deal that pays him north of $5 million, and everyone can see his numbers. And I don't understand why anyone would be willing to take on that type of contract, particularly at this moment in time. Even some of the teams whose goaltending has faltered, I don't know how you could then look at him and say, okay, well, this is a guy that's going to come in and be the answer for us. How you could confidently answer that way. So there was you don't have to go back very far to have a period of time where a lot of people were really high on Tristan Jarry and his stature in the game. I think part of that has changed over a larger sample size, and I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are more or less stuck.
Yeah, certainly feels that way. You mentioned it, the contract. If he was a pending UFA, if he had 1 year left on his deal, maybe you could even find like a bad contract swap somewhere. But with the term attached to that thing, it'd be real tough to move on from. Smoke, fire, false alarm, always a fun one with Frank. Let's continue and get to our big segment today. It's the coach's room with Jon Goyens. Jon Goyens, former QMJHL head coach and now a color analyst with TSN 690 for the Montreal Canadiens and the Rocket. John, always a pleasure to welcome you in, and we're going to stay in Canada for this week's edition of the Coach's Room and talk about the NHL's last remaining perfect team in the Winnipeg Jets. They got another win last night. They are 6-0, and one thing that stands out is the goals for per game in this one. I was someone who heading into the year was like, man, does their forward group have enough juice here? Are they going to be able to score enough? Early on, that's happening. What's driving it?
Well, there's a couple things driving it. They've got 12 players that have played every single game that are at half a point per game or better. The only team that I have found with more players with half a point a game that have played every game is the New York Rangers with 13. So I did a real dive on this. So you have depth of scoring without Velarde or Iafallo having scored a goal yet, but are producing on the power play. They're getting their assists. The other point that I really want to emphasize is Morrissey and Neil Pionk. Neil Pionk, because of Neil Pionk, in my opinion, their power play, their second power play unit has scored as many goals as their first power play unit. So whether it be at 5-on-5 or on the power play, they right now are so diversified in depth, but also how they score.
Okay, so let's talk about that power play and let's roll some clips, because I look at it and I go, this is one that really struggled last year. 22nd in the league. They were a touch better when Sean Monahan got there, but even that was only kind of a blip. What have you seen aside from the depth that has made them much better with the man advantage so far to start this year?
The man advantage has been about a lot of quick strikes. So at times, like a lot of teams, they get in, they set up, and it's very obvious. Oh, it's a 1-3-1, and they overhandle the puck, and they try to we got to set up this set play or that set play. They are quick to strike off of possession, whether it be on an entry, whether it be on a loose puck recovery, whether it be on a takeaway. They aren't looking necessarily to get to their spots. Frank's the bumper, Tyler's the flank guy, Goyens is the QB. That's not what it's about right now.
Why do
it's
I have
about,
to be the bumper?
Hey, you don't like Braden Point? You can't be Braden Point out there? You don't have the
I look at me. I literally am a bumper.
So the reality is they quick strike. So between the two, they find ways to have that variety and no panic, whether it be first power play or second power play. So before we run those clips, I believe we've got the 5-on-5 clips fired up, ready to go first. And we'll show how they are very diversified. So they'll go from, this is last night, 2 versus 5 battle. When they could get 3 high, they could get guys like Kyle Connor free from coverage, from D-zone coverage. Look how quickly. So Ehlers is going to drive deep. He's deep. He's not going to force anything. The D close the gap. They get net presence. Colin Miller looks. Make sure he has that net presence. Watch Neil Pionk. He could take the foot off the gas at 7-3 with 40 seconds left. No chance. 4-man rush. Let's take it up ice. No mercy. Watch Neil Pionk. Boom. Closes in the neutral zone. Watch him. 4-man rush. Watch him drive the net and get his stick on the goalie to interfere. Neil Pionk, again, great gap. A steal by Perfetti sets up Ehlers on the zone entry. 200-foot breakout. Neil Pionk's already been highlighted. The timer's on. Watch how quickly they get up ice. Is he going to force a shot? No. Let's find that next layer and give it to the best pure sniper on the team in Kyle Connor. And it doesn't have to be all necessarily the studs or the offensive guys. I highlighted Miller. Watch Miller join the rush here. Here's a deep rush. find the fourth or fifth guy on the rush. And when in doubt, quick strikes off the draw. They are getting tons of quick strikes off faceoff. I hate to point out that Sidney Crosby doesn't pick up his guy. Yes, I'll be that guy to pick on Crosby. But they have a triple drive off that draw at a tie. It was tied at that point. And Sidney Crosby lets his centerman go, and they end up with 3 to the inside. So they're scoring off the rush. They're scoring off of good D-zone coverage. They're scoring off a good neutral zone. They're scoring off the forecheck and long, sustained O-zone pressure.
Is this anything different than, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but anything different than what they were doing under Rick Bowness?
I don't know. Maybe there's just a certain vibe. Maybe some guys know that some guys are nearing the end of their contract. I looked it up before I came on. Some guys are UFAs next year. The reality is they feel a little bit more free to play fast. And I'm not going to be here to criticize Bones whatsoever, but I feel like they're just free to play a lot faster right now. And like I said, everybody is contributing.
So let's wrap up with the tape on the power play now, and maybe look at this with the angle of what are they doing, allowing them to succeed, and also how sustainable can this be with this unit?
Yeah. So as we fire up the clips, and I think the part that is sustainable is that they don't rely on who stands where. So here it's a puck recovery. It's kind of an umbrella setup. He comes down, Connor comes down the line. He's got net presence. He snipes. You got zone entry. Hey, these two guys through the middle are going to back everybody off, and then they're going to go east-west, and look at, we focus on Scheifele getting a stick on that puck. Go to a 4-on-3. So far, I'm only highlighting power play number 1. So they're moving it around. Key, obviously, goal. Why? Because it's overtime. They win this game because of a power play goal. Now, puck pursuit. Clock is ticking on the power play. Recover, not about setting it up. Like, let's go. Let's take it to the net. Let's get a seeing eye shot through. Power play 2, again, a tag up, regroup, get entry, get depth, find the fourth guy. Stick little move by Perfetti. Yes, they picked apart the San Jose Sharks for 4 goals. I might be cherry picking because they went 4 for 7 for that game, but nonetheless, nobody else has. And look how quickly they moved this puck around. That was 6 passes, 3 stick handles, puck in the back of the net. Last night, zone entry, power play number 2. Watch how quickly from zone entry on a loose puck back to the point, and let's send it to net front. Niederreiter gets a stick on it. What they're not doing is they're not allowing PKs to get comfortable and say, oh, we got to get into our diamond. Oh, we got to get into our wedge or whatever the case may be. They are taking every opportunity to strike as quickly as possible.
So real quick on the way out, John, we've known the commitment that the Jets have to defense, but as you really broke this team down, were you surprised how efficient they were in terms of what they were able to create offensively? Second in the West in goals so far.
No, because again, like you mentioned, defense at the beginning of this question is because right now they are defending the slot so well in the D zone, and then they're all of a sudden they're just shot out of a cannon. They're on their toes. They are in the top 3 of the league in denying passes to the slot right now. And then they are in top 2 or 3 in creating offense from the slot. And they're doing it in a variety of ways. So they've really connected the 2 most important areas on the ice.
There you go, John. Really appreciate your time as always. That was a good look at a team and what's driving them, despite maybe not being a high-end elite offense or not one that was perceived to be early. What's been allowing them to be exactly that. Always appreciate the insight. Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.
Let's move along to our daily face-off inbox question, hashtag askdfo. Actually, before we do that, Frank, a couple of injury notes. Utah officially announcing Sean Durzi will be out 4 to 6 months following shoulder surgery. John Marino going to be out 3 to 4 months following lower back surgery. And Robert Thomas has an ankle injury for St. Louis. He will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. So the Blues will be missing a key piece for a while here. Let's talk about a play that definitely caused some controversy last night. And who else? It's Jacob Trouba. He laid the body on Justin Barron. Do you see anything as we roll this hit, Frank, that is worthy of a suspension?
I do not. The way that he goes about this hit, it's shoulder. His arms are down. There's nothing predatory about it to me when I look at it. This is a guy that if you're going to be going up against Jacob Trouba and coming down his wing, whether it's a hip check, whether it's something else, like you better have your head on a swivel because he's coming for you. And I think, honestly, the only thing I think of when I see this is I feel really bad for Justin Barron, because that to me, like, and I don't know if I was I was in Chicago for the Canucks Blackhawks game. I don't know if he finished the game or not, but that to me just looks like instant concussion.
Yeah, it was tough to see the way his head kind of snapped back. He was not in a good spot. One more here. Let's go to the YouTube. Brendan is in. Following up on the Paul Maurice conversation. With the Stanley Cup win, is Maurice a lock to be a Hall of Fame head coach?
I think he is. Multiple trips to the final, multiple different franchises, long tenures, lots of wins, and he's really was kind of a trailblazer in how quickly or early in his career he became an NHL head coach. Just by pure record book alone in games coached and wins, he's going to be right near the very top. Then add in the Stanley Cup success. I don't know how you'd keep him out.
Let's move along to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. You can get in on a huge range of markets today by using the promo code NATION. That's NATION, all caps. Download the app today. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Last night, I did the 16-leg parlay, $1 into 34,000. I did not hit it. I went 10 for 6 in the picks. It wasn't even close. Just one game on the schedule tonight. It is Flyers and Capitals. I like the over in this hockey game. Washington got their offense going yesterday. Philly's having a little bit of goaltending issues as well. Second of back-to-back, same teams playing for the second straight night as well. I think this one could be a little bit wide open, and I like that this number is 6, not 6.5. So you have a little bit of built-in insurance there with the potential for a push. So I like the over between Philly and Washington, as it's Michkov versus Ovi for a second straight night, Frank.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Flyers goaltending situation. Anthony DeMarco had a great breakdown of it on dailyfaceoff.com yesterday, talking about how the leash is getting short for Ivan Fedotov, and at some point in the very near future to expect some kind of move, whether it's Fedotov on waivers or what, but they're probably going to give Kolosov a look from the AHL.
Interesting. Fedotov has one more year on a contract worth more than $3.5 million per season. Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. We just talked about Trouba in a moment that sparked some outrage, went a little viral. There was another one, and it was the game you were at, Frank, a controversial offside or non-offside call.
Yeah, this was really an amazing sequence, because as soon as you started to watch this review, so look at the puck here, it's in the zone, and then it clearly comes out and you can see the white ice and you go, that is obviously offside, right? And you're thinking, what a great catch by the Chicago Blackhawks video crew, because the sequence ultimately later ends up becoming a goal. And then the Situation Room looks at the challenge and they decide to uphold the goal. And you're thinking, how could that possibly be? Well, the explanation is that basically Kiefer Sherwood here, either knowingly or unknowingly, ends up tagging up. His skate comes back outside of the blue, waits a split second, and then decides to go back in again. It happens very fast. The Situation Room was on it, and they viewed that as a good goal. I would take a step back and argue, first off, this is not the spirit of what this should be. Like, that to me is a play that's clearly offside. And second, this is not really what video review was and coach's challenge was designed to be, to nitpick at this. So I understand if there's some frustration on the Blackhawks end, because they felt like they made the right call in real time to challenge this. It ends up going against them. Then you got to kill a penalty after that, adding insult to injury. And, you know, look, full marks to the Situation Room for being on it and that, like, noticing that split second difference. I have a real hard time believing, and I'd love to ask him the question, that Kiefer Sherwood processed it that fast in real time. If he did, that's like Cale Makar level. Like, you remember back Western Conference Final a couple years ago when he had that play at the blue line where he kind of touched up and didn't touch the puck for a split second as his teammate was getting onside. It's next level stuff. These players know the rules better than anyone else, but that one kind of threw me through a loop, probably some others, and a busy night for the Situation Room in terms of 32 games going on. They didn't miss a thing.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it honestly makes my brain hurt trying to like watch where the puck is. Did he touch it again, his foot? And it's like, yeah, like you said, spirit of the rule, that looked offside to me. There you go. It's, man, clear as mud offside reviews. And as someone said in the chat here, Brian, like you said last week, it's Pandora's box. It's open and you can't really close it now. That is a wrap on today's edition of Daily Faceoff Live, brought to you by Fountain Tire. We will be back tomorrow, same time as always, noon Eastern, right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed because our mornings start early here with Morning Cup of Hockey, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen at 9 a.m. Eastern. You do not want to miss that show. Enjoy everything we got coming up on the Daily Faceoff YouTube today, and we will chat on Thursday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.